You spent 12 years in school, you learned the quadratic formula, you learned the year the Magna Carta was signed, you learned the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and in all those years, across all those classes, no one sat you down and explained the 7 fundamental rules that determine whether you spend your life in financial anxiety or financial freedom. This is not an accident. Financial literacy is not taught because the system benefits from your ignorance. Credit card companies, lenders, and consumer brands depend on you not understanding these principles. But the real obstacle is not the missing curriculum, it is your own brain. Each of these rules is simple to understand and psychologically difficult to follow. Because human cognition was not designed for long-term financial planning. It was designed to survive until tomorrow. Today, we fix that. There is a quote often attributed to Einstein, though he probably never said it. Compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. The attribution is fake. The principle is not. If you invest $100 a month starting at age 20 with an average annual return of 8%, by age 60 you will have approximately $350,000. If you start at age 30 just 10 years later, you will have approximately $150,000. Same monthly amount, same return, $200,000 less. That missing decade cost you more than all the other decades combined. This is simple arithmetic. So why do most people fail at it? Because of a cognitive bias called hyperbolic discounting, the tendency to prefer smaller, immediate rewards over larger, delayed ones. Your brain literally devalues future money. A study by economists David Laipson and colleagues at Harvard found that people treat money they will receive in 1 year as worth only about 70% of the same amount today. Your future self feels like a stranger, and you do not sacrifice for strangers. The takeaway is not start investing early. You already know that. The takeaway is to make the investment automatic and invisible. Set up an auto transfer on payday. Remove the decision point entirely. You cannot fight hyperbolic discounting with willpower. You can only fight it with automation. In 1926, George Samuel Clayson published The Richest Man in Babylon, and its central lesson was this. Before you pay your rent, your bills, or your entertainment, set aside at least 10% of your income for yourself, not at the end of the month with whatever is left over. First, before anything else, most people do the opposite. They pay their expenses, enjoy their lifestyle, and save whatever remains, which is usually nothing. This is not a discipline problem. It is an architecture problem. Behavioral economist Richard Thaler demonstrated through his research on mental accounting that people categorize money into psychological buckets. Money that is already in your checking account feels like spending money. It gets spent. Money that was never in your checking account, because it was auto-transferred to savings before you saw it, does not trigger the same spending impulse. Thaler and Shlomo Benartzi designed a program called Save More Tomorrow, which enrolled employees in automatic savings increases tied to future raises. Participation rates were dramatically higher than traditional savings programs because it removed present-moment sacrifice. You were not giving up money you had. You are redirecting money you did not have yet. The takeaway, set up your paycheck to auto-deposit your savings percentage into a separate account before it ever hits your main account. You are not saving what is left after spending. You are spending what is left after saving. The order matters more than the amount. You have heard this advice 1,000 times. Stop buying lattes. Cancel your subscriptions. The idea is that small daily expenses compound into massive losses over time. It sounds logical. It is mostly wrong. Financial journalist Helene Olin dismantled this myth in her book, Pound Foolish. The average American's financial problems are not caused by $4 coffees. They are caused by 3 things: housing costs, healthcare costs, and education costs. These 3 categories have increased by 200 to 400% over the past 40 years while wages have stagnated. No amount of homemade coffee fixes that gap. The latte factor persists because of a psychological phenomenon called the fundamental attribution error, the tendency to blame individuals for outcomes that are largely determined by systems. It feels satisfying to say that people are poor because they make bad daily choices. It is far less comfortable to acknowledge that the structural economics have changed. This does not mean daily spending is irrelevant. But obsessing over small purchases while ignoring the 3 or 4 major expenses that consume 80% of your income is like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. It creates an illusion of financial control without addressing the actual problem. The takeaway: audit your big 3: housing, transportation, and insurance. A single decision to move to a slightly less expensive apartment or refinance a loan will save you more in one action than 5 years of skipping lattes. Focus your energy where the leverage is highest. You get a raise. You upgrade your apartment, you lease a nicer car, you eat at better restaurants. 6 months later, you are earning more but saving the same amount or less. This is lifestyle inflation, and it is the primary reason high earners still live paycheck to paycheck. A study by economists at the Federal Reserve found that 25% of households earning over $150,000 per year report that they could not cover a $400 emergency expense. These are not low-income families. These are people who make 3 times the median income and have inflated their lifestyle to match or exceed every raise. The psychology behind this is the hedonic treadmill, a concept developed by Brickman and Campbell in 1971. Humans adapt to improvements in circumstances remarkably quickly. The new car feels exciting for a month. Then it feels normal. Then you want a better one. Each upgrade provides a brief spike of satisfaction, followed by a new baseline of expectation. You are running faster and staying in the same place. The antidote is what researchers call the satisfaction plateau. Studies by Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton found that emotional well-being increases with income up to approximately $75,000 per year, adjusted for inflation closer to $100,000 today, and then levels off. Beyond that point, more spending does not make you happier. It just raises your baseline. The takeaway: when you get a raise, save the raise. Keep your lifestyle at the level that made you comfortable before the increase. Your happiness will not decline. Your net worth will accelerate. Financial advisors tell you to save 3 to 6 months of expenses in an emergency fund. They frame it as a financial buffer. It is actually a psychological one. A 2015 study published in the journal Social Science and Medicine found that the single strongest predictor of psychological well-being, stronger than income level, employment status, or even relationship status, was having liquid savings. Not investments, not home equity, cash you can access tomorrow. The researchers found that even a modest emergency fund of $500 to $1,000 significantly reduced anxiety, improved sleep quality, and decreased symptoms of depression. This makes sense when you understand the neuroscience. Financial uncertainty activates the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. It puts your nervous system into a chronic, low-grade fight-or-flight response. This is not a metaphor. Cortisol levels are measurably elevated in people with financial insecurity. And chronic cortisol exposure impairs decision-making, reduces impulse control, and degrades working memory. The exact cognitive functions you need to make good financial choices. An emergency fund breaks this cycle. It does not make you rich, it makes you calm. And calm people make better decisions about everything else: their career, their investments, their relationships. The takeaway: before you invest a single dollar, build a cash buffer. It does not need to be 6 months of expenses on day one. Start with $1,000. The psychological return on that money is higher than any investment you will ever make. The financial media sells excitement, hot stocks, crypto moonshots, the next 10-bagger. And your brain craves it because of the same dopamine system that makes gambling addictive. Novel, unpredictable financial information triggers reward circuits that steady, boring index funds never will. But the data is merciless. The SPIVA scorecard, published annually by S&P Dow Jones Indices, consistently shows that over a 15-year period, approximately 92% of actively managed funds underperform their benchmark index. The professionals, with teams of analysts, proprietary data, and decades of experience, cannot beat the simple strategy of buying everything and holding it. John Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, built a $5 trillion company on a single insight. Most investors would be better off buying a low-cost index fund and never looking at it again. He was right. And yet, the majority of individual investors still try to pick stocks, time the market, and chase performance. Not because the evidence supports it. Because boring feels wrong. Because doing nothing feels like negligence. Because your brain equates activity with progress. The takeaway: buy a diversified, low-cost index fund. Set up automatic contributions. Do not check it more than once a quarter. The boredom you feel is the price of admission to the only strategy that reliably works. This is perhaps the most misunderstood concept in personal finance. Your salary is what you earn. Your wealth is what you keep. These are entirely different numbers, and confusing them is the source of most financial stress. Thomas Stanley and William Danko documented this extensively in The Millionaire Next Door. They found that the majority of millionaires in America drive used cars, live in modest homes, and have never bought a watch that costs more than $300. Meanwhile, many people earning $200,000 or $300,000 per year have a net worth close to zero, because they spend everything they earn maintaining the appearance of wealth. This is driven by social comparison theory, first proposed by Leon Festinger in 1954. Humans evaluate their own status by comparing themselves to peers. And in the age of social media, your peer group is no longer your neighborhood. It is a curated highlight reel of global consumption. You are comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's show reel, and your spending escalates to close a gap that does not actually exist. The takeaway: track your net worth, not your income. Net worth is the only number that matters, assets minus liabilities. A teacher with a paid-off house and a retirement account is wealthier than a surgeon with a mansion, 3 car payments, and credit card debt. Wealth is not what you display. It is what you would have left if you lost your income tomorrow. These 7 rules are not secrets. They are not complicated. Every one of them could fit on an index card. And yet most people will spend their entire lives violating every single one, not because they lack information, but because their brains are wired for short-term survival, social comparison, and the avoidance of discomfort. The education system did not teach you these rules. But the deeper failure is that it did not teach you how your own mind sabotages your ability to follow them. Understanding money is easy. Understanding yourself is the hard part, and it is the only part that matters.